What up, what up, what up, y'all? This is Isaiah Fowler, founder of SWAV Eyewear and SWAV Agency, and we coming to you with another episode today, man. I want to talk about retail and the perspective on retail, right? I want to talk about the current state, but also the future, and also just some insight and some perspective for you to think about in your endeavors as, building your company, right? So number one, or I guess the main thing is, is retail dead is like the number one question that people kind of be thinking about. Some people say retail's dead. Some people say retail isn't dead. And I want to talk about that today, right? So I really just want to paint a picture for you so you can understand fully what's going on. So in my opinion, retail is not dead because people are always going to want to go somewhere physically to shop. No matter how many options we have on the internet, people are going to want to go in person to get that experience, especially depending on what they're purchasing, right? Before the end of the year, I got a new MacBook. I didn't buy the MacBook on the internet. I wanted to go in the store. Yes, they have options online to shop, but I like going in person to do things anyway, right? And that's a larger purchase anyway. So you want to make sure it's working. You don't want to get it online and then get the order and then something's wrong with it. So you want to kind of go in person with that. But number one, so retail isn't dead. So let's think about this. Back in when I was growing up, we had the stores like Montgomery Ward's, Sears, Kmart, right? Of course, there was Target back then as well. But it was just a whole bunch of department stores, Circuit City, Universal something. That was another electronics store, Radio Shack, right? So those were all retail. So this is how it used to be. In order to get your product selling, you had to get a big purchase order in a store. Most of the way retail used to work was everything was like on lock. You had certain stores, and those stores were probably owned by the same groups. So let's say Radio Shack in Circuit City, for example, and Best Buy. Those stores were probably owned by the same group. One thing I learned is a lot of these big companies that we see, it's all a manipulation. The same people owns multiple different of these conglomerate companies, right? They're owned by groups. Like, I forget the company, but Vanguard, right? Vanguard owns a lot of corporate companies, right? So I want you to think, if the same person is owning 3 or 4 or 5 of these conglomerates that we were shopping at back in the day, then it's all going to the same pocket anyway. So it's an illusion of like variety, but it's really not. It's the same stuff. And they got the supply chain on lock. So now what's happening is we're seeing a shift. Retail isn't dead, but department stores are. We've seen it over the past 20 to 25 years, right? There's no more Radio Shack. There's no more Circuit City. There's no more Montgomery Ward's. Sears is holding on by a super thread. I don't even know. There's a Sears like down the street from my house when I go do yoga. There's a Sears and it's closed, right? A lot of these stores they're not here anymore. But what is not dead, what you're starting to see is all these brands that are scaling on the internet, they're opening up their own stores, right? Why does Warby Parker have their own stores? I remember when I used to live in DC, they had their own store there. So if retail is so dead, then why are these new brands that haven't even been in business for 10 years, why are they opening up their own brick and mortar experiences? I'm gonna tell you why. Because they built up their brand on the internet first. Never in the history of the world has a company been able to start online and then go into retail. It's always been, we have to start retail and then we can go online as we grow. But now it's shifted. And that is extremely powerful because when you build your brand online first, You can be more profitable. The margins are better. They're higher, right? But the biggest thing is you can segment. You can find out your customers. You can find out what your customers like. You can find out where most of your customers are going to live. So let's say for 3 years, you're only online. Only online, right? All right. But let's say in these 3 years, you get enough data and you're able to say, oh, wow, a majority of my client or customers are in Florida. Let's say they're in Miami, Florida, right? So let's say 45% of your customers concentrated are in Florida, Miami, Florida. So then you can say, okay, if we have people consistently purchasing from Florida, we're going to open up a store in Florida, right? And then because that's where most of our customers are at, we can, get more market share in that market of Miami and then build the brand there. Because when you get a retail store, you got to really know, you don't want to just think, oh, I got a retail store, cool. Because the real goal is to have your retail store, maybe doing less than 10% of your monthly revenue, depending on where you're at, right? If you're doing $200,000 a month and your store is doing less than 10%, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because online sales is gonna, outpace the brick and mortar sales anyway. Getting a retail store for you is really just a brand play. It's a presence play. It's so people have a place to come to. It's so people can have could experience the brand in person. So retail isn't dead, but you have to have an experience. You have to have a customer journey. You have to have a brand. You have to have something that people want to experience, right? So even when you do open up a store, what's the reason for the store? Besides them coming to shop and getting in person, right? You want to have a reason. You want to have some type of something so that people can come and they'll feel like they're coming for a reason. So retail's not dead. If you can merge a technological experience and an in-person experience and merge the two, that's very powerful, right? We saw it with, I know I saw it when Nipsey had his store, right, in LA on Crenshaw. It was like a whole experience, and you can put your phone on a tag and there was a certain song that you could listen to while in the store that he did not release out to the world. So that's what I mean when I say experiences, right? But you will not get there if you are not focusing on direct to consumer and you're not focusing on your data. You should be trying to get as much data as possible, yo. You have to be getting as much data as possible. Emails and phone numbers are the start, but that's not the finish. There's so much more data that you can be getting and that you should be getting depending on what you're selling. And also, if you have a product that you're selling for $100, $200, $300, $400, $500, in the future, a retail store really may help you out with that, help you out with just the brand long term, because a product that's not an impulse buy, right? If it's like a $20, $30 product, you can sell online for probably quite a bit of time. But if there's confusion around your product, a retail would help that, because people can see it in person how the product is. And like for me, I sell eyewear, right? An in-person experience would be cool because people can try it on, right? So you want to know the barriers of why somebody wouldn't buy your product, know the barriers, and then from there, you want to combat those barriers in different ways. If you can't afford a retail place right now, that's perfectly fine. Do what you would do retail on the website, in emails and things like that. But you got to understand, retail is not dead. Just the standard of like an experience and a customer journey has increased. And so you have to be on the cutting edge of this technology, right? If retail was dead, these direct to consumer brands wouldn't be opening up stores like they are. The new retail is having your own brand, and then after you've built up the brand enough times, then you start opening up stores once you start knowing the data, because you could do it profitably. You could start building it out because a build out on a retail store is going to cost you a pretty penny, right? It's not going to be $1,000, right? You may need $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to build out this store, right? So do you have that? So a lot of people want to get these retail stores, but I always say get a warehouse first, right? Somewhere where you can store your stuff, right? That you could continue to invest into the online, somewhere where you could shoot your content. And then over time, what's going to happen is your online is going to continue to grow. And then you're going to be able to go get that retail location. And then you're going to be able to work that, right? So these are the things that you want to think about. These are the things that, will definitely help you in the long run of your company. But direct to consumer is where it's at. Focus on direct to consumer. Fuck the middleman. You do not need a middleman getting a piece of your profits and your margins, right? Focus on direct to consumer. If you want to go deeper into direct to consumer, then feel free to go grab this at swavcircle.com, swavcircle.com. Grab this playbook I made. Or if you want to do a one-on-one strategic intensive with me, click the link in the description. Go to growwithswav.com, GROW with swav.com, and then book a discovery call and we can make that happen. But retail is not dead. Focus on your direct-to-consumer and you will be good long-term, all right? Always remember, everything you do in life starts with a vision. Peace.